Hey guys, this is Hafiz. Today I'm going to talk about the DOT annual inspection that happen every year. So for 2021, it's between May 4 to May 6, and this event happen every year for 72 hours. The DOT give different dates. So most of the time they want to check the entire truck, brakes, combination, and the suspension system and tires, and everything that you can see on the truck. They want to check everything. So today I'm just going to discuss a few things that you need to do before you pull over to the weigh station or during this inspection time. So the very first thing you need to do is make sure you have a truck washout. The more clean truck you have, there's less chances that you get pulled over, because they look at your truck and there's more chances they let you go because they know you're taking care of your truck. And the second thing that you have to make sure that your windshield and there's no crack on your windshield, and you also have no messy dashboard. So if your dashboard is clean, you have less chances to get pulled over. And whenever you pull over into the scale, make sure you turn on all your flashers, headlights, and the wipers, and then you pull into the scale and go within the speed limit, and have your truck scale before you get there, so you have no issue with the weight. So when you pull over, pull into the scale, and you passing by the DOT officer, they're gonna look at your truck and see how it looks, and from a distance, and maybe they make a decision to let you go or pull you over. And then the second thing they're gonna look at you, if they, let's suppose they pull you on a scale and they want you to go slow, then they're gonna observe your mud flaps. So you make sure you don't have any missing mud flap, and they're gonna look at your tires, if there's any flat tires or the low threads on the tire. And also they're gonna observe your rims. If you have dirty rims or any oil on the rims, that is a sign of the wheel seal leak, and they're gonna tell you to pull over, and they're gonna do the inspection. And so these are the few tips that you have to follow if you are just pulling into the scale house, and you want to avoid the DOT as much as possible. So let's suppose if you get pulled over and they ask you to bring your paperwork and everything, what you have to do next. Right, so just in case if they pull you over, the first thing they're gonna ask you is your logbook. So you make sure when the DOT officer walk to you, you have your seat belt on and your logbook is on. That means your screen have to be on all the time, and when they ask you to show the logbook, then you have to give them your logbook and give them impression that you were ready for that. So for the logbook, you need to have at least 14 days status, and they can give you any kind of violation or tickets up to 14 days. You need to have the truck and the trailer registration ready, and you need to have the insurance cab cards for the truck and the trailer, and you need to have the paperwork for the DOT annual inspection. You need to have the permit for IFTA, HUD, or New Mexico, or any other permit like Kentucky or Oregon, any other state. If you're going through that, you need to have a paper handy that you can show them for that state permit. So also you need to have the paper log for up to 7 days, that in case that your logbook is not working, you can use the paper log. So also you need to have the instruction sheet for the e-log. Whatever logbook you're using, you need to have the instruction and the logbook malfunctioning sheet in the truck. So that's what the DOT is gonna ask you when they ask for your logbook. You can turn on the inspection mode, give it to them, but still they don't know, because there's so many logbooks out there, so they don't know which one, how they go into the system and look at the logbook status. So they need to see that sheet so they can follow the instruction and they can email them the copy of the logbook. So if you don't have that, that is a violation. So another thing is, like, if you have any passenger with you, you need to have the passenger authorization form with you, or a letter from the company or from the insurance company that you can have a passenger, which is a non-CDL. So you need to have the authorization form with you all the time, because if you are passing by DOT, they can ask the passenger to leave the truck. So just in case, you need to have that. And also you need to have your license and your medical card handy. So that's the paperwork they can ask you to show them. And you also need to have the equipment lease letter. If you are the owner operator and you're leasing your truck to somebody and they're dispatching you, you need to have the lease letter with you. That's only they can find out if, let's suppose, your registration is under your name and the company have a different name, so they know you are the owner operator. You're not the driver. You cannot lie to them if your registration is under your name, because it's your truck and you're leasing to somebody else. So they need to see that lease agreement that you are leasing your truck to that company. And another thing that you need to show them that you have to show them respect and be patient and try to cooperate with them as much possible. Let's suppose they want to check inside the cab, what things they can look at your in cab, like what other things that they can check. One of them is a fire extinguisher. So you need to have the fire extinguisher in your truck, and you also need to have the extra fuse box, just in case if you break down or something and you need a fuse just to keep rolling. So you need to have that. That is required. And you also need to have the triangles, just in case if you break down, you can use them for safety. And also you need to have the medical kit, first aid kit. And another thing they can look at is they can ask you to turn on the truck. And let's suppose they ask you to turn on the key, and then they're gonna look at all those lights. So let's suppose in this case, if your ABS light turn on and off, and your check engine light is on. So in this case, I have two check engine lights, so they can write me for that because I have check engine light. It could be anything, like your headlight bulb is missing, or you need a regen or anything. It's up to them, you know. So that could be one of the thing. And another thing they can check is, like if you turn on your keys and they look at these ABS lights. So if any of these ABS lights are on, that means your ABS system is not working. And another way to check this ABS lights yourself. So this is your ABS light that can if you look at it, you can tell if your ABS system is working or not. So this light is for the ABS, and it's on the right on the tail of the trailer. So when you turn on the key, look at this light. You know, if it turn on and turn off, that means your ABS for the trailer is working properly. If you have any issue with the truck ABS, then you should have the light on. So if this light don't turn on and stay off, it might be your bulb is bad, light is bad, or it could be your ABS system is not working. So I'm just gonna see turn off and then turn on again, so maybe you can see if the light turns on. So you saw that, maybe let me see. as you see, that light turn off, um, and that means air brake system is working. So also a lot of drivers, they don't care when they get pulled over because they think it's not their company and it's not their truck, so why they have to worry about it. You should be worried about it if it's inside cab and anything wrong with the truck. Let's suppose your paperwork is missing, or you don't have registration, or you don't have proper logbooks, anything like that related to the driver negligence. There is a CSA score for the companies, for the MC and DOTs, but there is also a CSA score for the drivers. So let's suppose if there's anything wrong with the truck and with your paperwork or your logbook, your CSA score will go high. So you can't see that, but with the insurance record, if a lot of people say like, I don't know why their insurance is so high, and the reason is because they have a really bad inspections and their record is not clean. So when you go apply for any job out there, big companies, they always run your CSA score and your license. So they have the record for that, you know, for the DOT. So that tell them how secure driver are you and if you have a good record or not. So another thing they're gonna inspect is like a windshield. So you see this windshield crack right there. So if it's like a 1 inch or 1 square inch, it's okay. But if they have a large crack bigger than this, they're gonna write you off. So that's a violation. So in my case, I have this crack on my windshield. As you can see, some stone hit here and slowly it expands, so I have to replace it, otherwise it's a violation for me. So a few things like this is the very first sign they can pull you right away because they see the crack on the windshield. So let's suppose they find something, maybe they find something suspicious and they want to check your paperwork. So like I said, all this list I gave you, your registration, permits, and insurance and everything related to logbooks, if you have all those things ready in one file, they will let you go because they know like, okay, they did the visual inspection, looks good now with the paperwork, so they let you go with that too. But if you not organized and you're looking for the paperwork here and there and you don't know where it is, then they'll be like, okay, this guy is like he's like not a good driver, or he's not taking care of the equipment, maybe he didn't do the pre-trip. So maybe we can find a lot of things out of this truck, so they can ask you for the next level inspection. So now in the next level inspection, they're gonna check a lot of things which could be A to Z, everything, you know. So you don't want to go to that point, but if you go to that point, you have to make sure before you drive to look all those things. And so I'm just gonna go through those few details that everybody knows, and we're not mechanic or we're not gonna fix them ourselves, but we need to make sure they are safe and we can have no DOT violations with that, you know. So I'm just gonna go through that quickly. All right, so when you passing by the DOT, you make sure you have the headlights on, your flashers are on, your wipers are on, and you have a truck washout, and your windshield have no cracks, you don't have messy dashboards, and there's a few other things that you have to make sure before you pull over to the scale and you inspect them, which is when you pass the DOT, they're gonna look at your tires. So make sure you have good tires and the rims are not dirty and there's no leak in there. And then you make sure your inspection sticker, your IFTA is up to date, you have proper decals, and then your tires are clean and they don't have low threads, and your rims are clean, no cracks. So they're gonna observe all those things. And your mud flaps, so your mud flap, they should be in a good condition. And also you make sure that all the lights are blinking, so they can observe it visually, and they don't have to pull you over. And then you make sure your trailer rims and tires, they are in good condition. And also another thing is, like, if you see this kind of hanging wires, that is a violation. So you have to make sure they're like at least at least a feet high from the ground, which is safe for you. Let's suppose you have a piece of tire on the road and it's gonna hit this wire, and you're gonna have a really big problem on the road because your airlines, they're gonna break. So in this case, we have to make sure we secure these lines. And also, let's suppose if this spring is broke, so the other spring is holding it. Let's suppose if that broke, you're gonna rub those wires to the ground and have a major air leak, and you will be out of service. So if there's any air leak in your truck or trailer, in the airbags or anywhere, like excessive air leak, you will be out of service. So you have to make sure there's no air leak in your truck or trailer. If there is, you make sure you fix it before you go to the DOT. Otherwise, they will put you out of service. So they also gonna look at your suspension system, like your shocks, if there is no leak in your shocks, and if the airbags have no leak. So and you also not hearing any leak in the trailer or the truck. So you also have to make sure you have the proper brakes, and they are not low, and there's no gap between drum and the brake when the brakes are released. Because if there is a huge gap between those brakes, like you see, it's a very tiny, very little gap between the brakes, so that's okay. But if they see a huge gap between the drum and the brakes, and out of those 10 brakes, truck and trailer combined, if they see only 2 brakes out of adjustment, you will be out of service. If it's 1 brake, they will just write you for that, and if it's 2 brakes, you will be out of service. And if your brake chamber is leaking, or it's leaking air, you are out of service. Even you can drive with that. If your airbag is leaking, you are out of service. Any kind of air leak in your truck or trailer, you are out of service. So you have to make sure that all these equipments, they are working properly. So the same thing for each axle, you have to go through that and make sure everything is secure, and that can save you a lot of money over the road, and also it can save you from the DOT, and there's less chances they're gonna pull you over. So also observe all these wires, even the airlines or the electric wires, if there's no cracks. So let's suppose this one is bended but it's not leaking. So over here, this one is electric wire, so it was touching here. But if you see any crack, like it's exposed, then it's a violation. So you make sure that you have no cracks. If there's any cracks or it's exposed, you use a tape and cover that. And also you have to make sure you have good tires, and they're not low, and they have a proper air pressure into that. If you have a flat tire, like the air is completely out of the tire, and you are out of service. If it's a little bit low pressure, then they will just write you for that and give you point for that. But they don't put you out of service just because you have a ball tire. As long as it's inflated, they're not gonna put you out of service. And all those marking lights or the turn signal lights, make sure you don't have a lot of lights. Like people, they add a lot of lights on the side of the trailer just to make it look nice, and they can see the trailer at night. So make sure you have as less lights as possible, because each light is a violation. So you don't want to put unnecessary lights that can create a violation. Let's suppose if one of them is missing, you're going to have a 3 points in your CSA score, so for the company. So another thing is your tail lights, and then it comes to your brake lights and turn signals. And you only required to have those 3 lights in the middle. You're not required to have those 2 on the side, but a lot of people, they have more than that. But you only required to have these 3 lights in the middle. So make sure they're all working. And at night time, if you have marking lights on and your brakes, your brake is working properly, brake lights, then if there is a car behind you, they may pass you and they don't pull you over. So this is very important, like turn signal lights, right? If you are missing or your turn signal, one of them, if let's suppose you have a trailer and you're driving, if the one of the turn signal is out, then you will be out of service. One turn signal light, you will be out of service. So that's why you carry extra lights with you. And if your brake lights, when you hit the brake, those brake lights should be turning on. If they both out, then you are out of service. But if one of them is working, you still should be all right. But you always carry those lights with you, spare lights with you. You need to have those, because these little things, they can get you out of service very quick. Just the brake lights and the turn signal light. So same thing, you look at the mud flaps, make sure you have them properly mounted and they're not hanging there. If you have any low threads on the tires, make sure you change them. And another thing is, like, if you have any loose thing on the truck which is hanging there unsecure, make sure you secure it. Like in my case, I have this spare tire which I just put in there. I have to make sure I secure it. I strap it down and make sure everything is properly secured and it's not gonna cause damage to anybody else. So the tires, make sure they're clean and they're not low, and also you have proper permits, and also make sure you don't have any cracks on the rims. No cracked rims or no dirty rims. So if the DOT asks you to open your hood and they want to inspect your steering equipment and your steering rod, they want to make sure that there's no more than 1.5 to 2 inch play. So if there's no play, you're good. And make sure your U-joints for the steering rod, they are good and you don't have any play. And you also look at your steering box, there's no leak, even the reserve valve. So make sure there's no leak that are actually going on the ground. So if there's any leak that is causing any oil, or even the antifreeze is dipping on the ground, that is a violation. So also you observe all these bolts, that they are properly mounted and secure, and you don't see any cracks in any of those lines, and no leak or cracks or damage to those lines when you observing that. And also you look at all those injectors connections, so make sure there's no leak or no diesel leak or anything. And the same thing you do on the passenger side, you have to observe the exhaust system. So you make sure you have a windshield washer filled up. If there's no windshield washer in here, that is also a violation. So you make sure you have enough windshield washer. If they ask you to turn that on, you make sure you have that in there. And then you have to observe the same thing on the passenger side. Look at all those pipes and make sure there's no leak, no exposed electric wires, and no cracks on any of the hoses. But in my case, I just noticed that I have some kind of exhaust leak going on, and I just noticed that here, which if you see that, it's getting a little bit darker and I noticed that the manifold, exhaust manifold, have a seal leak or something, and that's why it's getting a little bit dark on that side and it's getting black. So if they ask you to turn on the truck, then they're gonna look at it. But in this case, I just noticed that there's some kind of black spot, so I have to make sure that I get that fixed. And same thing if you have the APU and the exhaust, you observe that exhaust and the APU pipes, and you also observe the exhaust pipe. If they're not hanging, or there's no cracks or anything like that. So as you can see that my air lines and my electric cable, if you see them, they are hanging and they're touching the frame. That is the violation, and you want to make sure there's no cracks or no cracks or exposed wires over there. So you also make sure there's no air leak in these lines. So in this case, let's suppose they are touching here, so I have to make sure I pull that up and secure it. It should not be touching the ground. And also you make sure this frame, like the beams of the truck, make sure they have no cracks or damages. And then very important thing is your fifth wheel. So you make sure your fifth wheel, they are secured, and you don't see any leak or damages or air leak from there that can cause more trouble over the road. So make sure you don't have any of those. So I'm just gonna show you how can you check your airbags. If there's any leak, just use the windshield cleaner, and then spray on that, and make sure you observe every single leak in there. Right. So just to check the air leak in the airbags, I'm using Windex. So all you have to do is spray on it and look for the black. So your landing gear should be above ground. It should be at least like 9 inches to 1 feet above ground, so it don't create any problem on the road. And you have to make sure that you take care of your equipment and your license, because if you are not worried about the CSA score, that means you are not in a trucking business for a long time. So you have to make sure that you cover yourself when you get pulled over. Make sure you have all the paperwork, the list I gave you guys. Make sure you have everything ready for the DOT, and that can save you a lot of money, and it can save you a lot of trouble. I hope you guys like the video. Please subscribe to the channel, and like the video, share with your friends. Thank you so much.